Hi, this is Hira from the Generational Icons podcast.
And this is Shaquille. We have a great new episode today with a special guest here named Zakir. Zakir Faraji?
Yes, sir.
Faraji, yeah, perfect. So Zakir, I know we always typically say like we have special guests, right, on Icons and things like that. But I think today we really do have a special guest. He is an investor. And correct me if I'm wrong. You can always correct us. Investor, entrepreneur, thought leader. You're big in the tech space. I know you're doing a whole bunch of things. Without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, please give a big round of applause at home, obviously, to our brother Zakir Faraji. Thank you for coming on the show. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me. I mean, this is really an exciting event, and I appreciate you guys having me, and I'm really excited to learning how this goes on and kind of like sharing my knowledge and experience with the Bangladeshi or the South Asian community or anybody else that is really watching to just perhaps see if they can utilize some of my experiences and knowledge and help them either kickstart or kind of progress their career.
Yeah, no, thank you. We really appreciate it. And as you know, obviously I'll tell you a little bit about like who we are and what we do, right? But we've talked behind the scenes. We have 3 segments. And so one of the segments is culture and identity. The second one is health and wellness. And the third one is financial independence. And the concept behind our first segment, culture and identity, is really focusing on who we are and where we came from and how that played a role in kind of what we're doing today, right? So if you don't mind kind of sharing your story, like from the beginning, if you emigrated here, if you kind of was born here, and kind of how you and your family dynamics, how that shifted and how that shaped it into who you are today, if you don't mind.
Well, yeah, for sure. So, obviously I'm from Bangladesh, and my father immigrated here in the 90s, but I came here along with my brother and my mom in 2002. So right after 9/11, I think at that time I was like 12 years old, and living in Brooklyn, literally just the same place. I think it was like a 2-bedroom apartment. My brother and I, we were practically roommates up until I got married. And then even though, but I got married right around when I was 30, and he was right around 27-ish. And I was traveling, roommates, plus I was traveling a lot for work, so it was kind of like crashing in time to time at home. And my dad was a New York City cab driver. So just typical, at that time, the community we lived in, majority of the people are either cab drivers or you're working in constructions or you're working in restaurants. So, once you live in that kind of that environment in Brooklyn's rent, there really isn't much of an option. And our parents have a dream: either you be a doctor, you be a lawyer, or an engineer. And initially I thought I would do engineering. And when I met some of the individuals, what they do for engineering, I went to City College, and that was my goal, CUNY City College, to go into Grove School of Engineering, and that's where I got in. And after a semester of it, I was like, I can't see myself doing that. Sitting behind a room, calculating, going through the calculus and finding the area under the curve and all of that. I was like, that's not me. It didn't resonate with my personality. So from there, I said, okay, what do I like? So I think I was mentioning to you earlier, my life was shaped by movies, right? So in high school, towards the senior year, there really isn't a lot of classes going on. So I had a lazy teacher, and they would always play movies. So at that time, they played a movie called Boiler Room with Vin Diesel. And what they did is they set up, on that movie, they set up a kind of like a hedge fund, and they would get, I would call it, what do you call it, a Ponzi scheme or something. You get people to invest penny stocks and you make a lot of money. And that was it. I was like, oh, I gotta. So, they say, hey, what do you want to do when you grow up, in high school? I didn't have an answer, but I knew I wanted to hit 6 figures by the time I was 25. That was my goal. Even if it was like, if it was like, even if I had to do like New York City sanitation or whatever the case is, because at that time they say, hey, sanitation workers, they paid good money. So I was like, if I have to do that, I'll do it. But I need to hit 6 figures by the time I was 25. So when engineering, I was like, I can't do it. It's not me. I said, I want to go into finance. And then I transferred to Baruch College, and I got my bachelor's in finance to try to make 6 figures. But guess what? 2012, financial market crashed. So there wasn't any jobs. And then even though I had great grades and everything else was good, and I was really good at trading and whatnot. There wasn't any job at that time. Lehman Brothers crashed, so did some of the other organizations, the big ones. So right after I graduated, I did graduate with a full-time job offer from Geico, as I was mentioning to you guys earlier, and making like $56,000. I remember 56 or 54 into their corporate leadership program. So they train you in each department for 6 months. So 6 months sales, 6 month claims, 6 month service, and they allow you to be the leaders within that branch. And I did it for a year. I remember my dad at that time, because I was living in Brooklyn, Woodbury, Long Island was exit 45 on the LIE, and it was hour and 15 minutes commute each way. And my dad, I saved a lot of money from FAFSA, financial aid. Yeah, they give you those checks. So I was very frugal growing up. So I'm still frugal. So I try not to I try not to spend if I don't have to. So I had $8,000 saved up, and then my dad and folks, they gave me another, I think it was $7,000, $13,000 I spent on Acura. Well, you needed a car to get to work, and that's the money I borrowed from them. And after a year of commuting, I probably had saved like $8,000, and everything else was kind of like gone. And not in the sense that I spent it away. It was more like, let's say 50, just to put it in the perspective so that you understand. After taxes, you bring home about $2,400. Now, out of $2,400, your gas payments, your insurance payments are like $400 a month, and then your food, and then your phone bill, you're literally left with, at the end of the month, maybe about $800 or $900. And forget about if you have like girlfriend or something. Now you're broke.
Negative.
You're broke. So literally, that was the case.
Out of the money.
So that's kind of like what, the cultural background and everything else and the situation that got me into thinking, hey, what do I do? In order to survive, in order to hit 6 figures, this isn't going to cut it. Yeah. And if I stay in that route, by the time I hit 6 figures, I would have to be like 31, 32. Because let's say the standard growth, you get 3.5% or 3% annual growth. So 56 turn into 57. And the bonus that you get is just extra. You can never count on those. So let's say by the time I hit 6 figures, I'll probably be 30. And that wasn't going to do it. And then a little bit of jealousy kicked in. What happened was, around my neighborhood where I was living, I noticed some of my older brothers, perhaps maybe a year or two older than me at that time, and they weren't, I wouldn't say they were the smartest of the bunch, or they didn't finish college at that time, but I noticed that they were taking an IT course, a tech course, and it was like a abandoned building or somebody's basement. They were taking it, and they were making 6 figures. So that hurt my ego. And especially because I was driving an older car and barely making it, they were pulling up in their new cars, Mercedes, BMWs, you call it. And it was kind of like a little bit of flex that got me jealous.
Yeah, and the difference between some of them, they don't even need to go through college to get
right,
to those degrees.
You don't need college.
Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly.
And then you went through all this hardship to make it somewhere, right, in terms of your goals.
And that's it's not that we had to do it, but that's what we were trained. That's what we were taught. Hey, you go to school, you get A's, you get good grade, and you get a good job.
Zakir, do you think that, just quickly to backtrack, do you think that like our culture plays a part in that?
100%. Because let's say my parents, they would always be like, you got to go to school, you got to go to school. In their mind, they think school is going to make you a doctor, school is going to make you an engineer, school is going to make you a lawyer, school is going to make you successful. But that's not the reality. School is just an institution that has a platform for you to go, and they're there with their generic courses. Let's say you do a bachelor's degree. I did bachelor's degrees in finance, right? 120 credits. Out of those, maybe 5 classes was really about finance. What about art, music, biology? None of those, I understand they're okay for an overall well-rounded, human being, but that's not really needed for you to be a financial investor.
It's not like a technical vocational school.
Right, it's not. So I, at that time, it sounded crazy. To me, when people would say, "Oh, I don't want to go to college," or even I think at that time, the CEO of Facebook, I used to follow a lot of people on YouTube and kind of like watch their story, because I didn't have anybody in my family that was in finance, or that I can go to and say, "Hey, what was the path that you followed?" So we had to find people that we can go to. You have career fairs, you have people, but career fairs, they're so generic. Nobody's gonna understand your route. So when I saw somebody in my community take the tech boot camps, like the QA classes, and become successful, now in my mind, I'm like, if that guy could do it, why can't I? So, once that summer, I think I got a job at Geico on June 1st of, I don't remember, like 2012, 2013. I was like, I want to try this. And I only had about $7,000 or $8,000 saved up, and the course cost $7,700.
So right there.
It was right there. And I thought it was unfairly priced because I had to pay everything up front. Right, so you had to pay everything up front, and nothing was really guaranteed at that time. But you kind of, at that point, you got to invest in yourself. And then I remember thinking, well, I invested 4 years into a college, and that didn't really guarantee a job either. Right, so why not? I seen somebody else do it. The probability of it is a little bit better, and I tried it, and ironically, not ironically.
So you dropped the Geico work to do this, or you did it simultaneously?
So I was working because I needed to still pay for the course and still have my bills. So I after 4 months, the course was 4 months. I think it was 4 or 4.5, something right around there. Don't quote me exactly because this was like almost 12 years ago. And I remember I hated, like there were times I hated waking up to go that hour and 20-minute ride to Long Island, sitting through traffic. And I was just waiting for me to feel like, hey, this could be it. 4 months in, I quit Geico. And then 2 weeks after I finished the course, I had a job. $93,000. The offer was $93,000. It was in a small town in North Carolina. There's like a small place called Southern Pines. That's where the golf Olympics, the tournaments take place, and it's big on golf. Yeah, so I was like, pack my bags, and I was out.
So you moved by yourself?
Yeah, I moved, and that was my way of. Remember, you mentioned about culture. So, being a brown hustle, I wanted to go away to dorm. I wanted to go enjoy that college life, but brown lifestyle didn't let me. So now, it's even when I got the offer at North Carolina, my parents were like, you shouldn't go there. Just stay home, find something else. I was like, nope. It gets me closer to my 6 figures. So I'm gonna, bounce. So I packed my bags, and just drove down there with one of my soccer coach, Arif Bhai, and he also shaped a lot of what I did. He helped out with guidance, and he acted as an older brother.
Like a mentorship, yeah.
And yeah, 100%. So he helped me drive all the way to Long Island, and then he flew back the next day, and that was it. Yeah, we took like I think it was like an all-night trip, like 11 hours or 12 hours drive.
And this is someone you like just met randomly, or like it was like a family friend?
Oh, no. So I played soccer growing up in the community. So he was one of those individuals that, that acted as a guardian or acted as
like
a
big
older
brother. Yeah.
And to this day, we actually have a youth-based soccer program that we run, that we founded in 2008, and we have close to 200 plus active individuals and 113 families with kids that participate now. So it started off a long time ago, but we're still doing it, and Arif Bhai still runs it.
Oh my God! And that's you and him, like you guys founded it together?
There were 7 of us that founded it in the community, and 7 friends. ASAB, yeah, it's called ASAB.
I put my kids through one called Soft Creek, and it's in Astoria, Queens.
Gotcha. So ASAB, at that time, it was supposed to be American Youth and Students Association of Bangladesh. Right. The reason we named it that was because we wanted to find an activity to do that would keep us away from the negative influence like drugs and weeds and everything else, and allow a platform where we can, a safe space. We can go have fun, be with our people, be with our culture, and enjoy what we do. And that was the goal. The 7 of us started it, and alhamdulillah, many of us are in very good places right now. I'm in tech. Arif Bhai is doing well in retail, and then we have another gentleman named Yasir. He's the founder of Rivertel, the telecommunication company that you see. Yeah, him. So, we are in places. One of our other brothers is he's a doctor now, doing neuroscience out of Pennsylvania. And another individual, he is into tech as well. So those 7 guys, alhamdulillah, we're doing well. and it could have been different if it wasn't something as simple as that. So definitely the culture we come from or the family background really drove us to where we are 100%. Like the
And
other.
there's so much, as you mentioned, negative cultural influences growing up here that, like, I've had a bunch of friends that, let's say, went the wrong route, delayed their education, and are sort of struggling, right, to sort of catch up to everyone else because maybe they connected with the wrong friends or whatnot, or they didn't have like a sort of a group hobby that they enjoyed, and sort of that drove their pastimes.
Are you talking about me?
No.
Oh, just making sure.
No, you don't.
We
You
need
know,
to edit that part out.
yeah. There is this saying. It says that you're an average of the 5 people you hang out with, and it's true. Let's say in terms of me, I got into tech, and then my younger brother, he wanted to do. So remember the cultural thing. So my parents failed to convince me to be a doctor, so they tried to put the pressure on him. So yeah, my brother, I feel for him. He went through like 5 different colleges. There is no CUNY left that he didn't go to, and he wanted to do doctors, pharmacists, EMT, and so many other things that he explored. And then finally, I was like, you know what, the exploration is done. Let's get into tech. So we started off our the triage tech solutions, a little technical QA course with my brother and some of our friends that were like, hey, you guys need to get your life together. You guys explored enough. So it was 5 of us and 5 of those guys that we put them in a course. And that's how my brother is in tech, my wife is in tech, my sister-in-law is in tech, her brother is in tech, so my 2 brother-in-laws are in tech. We are a family of tech, and if somebody comes and we scope him out and say, hey, you know what, this guy, he doesn't know what, like they come from Bangladesh or a family friend we meet, we tell them and say, hey, here is something that we're doing, here is how we did it. If you're interested, it might work for you. It's kind of like if I was driving Uber and you're like, hey, Zakir, what should I do? I can only give you advice on things I know.
Yeah.
I can't tell you go, open up a Dunkin' Donuts or open up, I don't know. But if I was running, Dunkin' Donuts, that's the first advice I would give you. I would say, hey, here is what I know. And if you want to take advantage of it, you do. If not, then you continue your search.
You see, like I love that you said that, right? Like, and so part of I know we introduced you as a special guest, but I think we can kind of convert you to an icon, and I'll tell you why. So like we believe that an icon is just not, it doesn't have to be a celebrity or an influencer. It could be ordinary people doing extraordinary things, and part of that is you are changing the trajectory of your family's lineage, right? Like look what you've done, like because you took that initiative. Now everyone that came after you is really like that. You're changing their life indirectly, and they're changing their lives and their family lives directly, right? And I think in every generation, and that's why we call it generational icons. In every generation there's an icon, right? In our parents' generation there's multiple icons, or our parents are icons for us because they kind of did what they could do, and we are here today because of them. And your kids, same thing, right? Like your kids their life is going to be different from how your life was. And so, like, I think we can officially call him an icon, right? What do you think? not to the American standards, but I think in our own way we can. And so, just wanted to tell you that part.
Oh, I appreciate that, but I don't know. I think it's just kind of like just somebody who I'm not afraid to explore, and also I try to play it safe. I explore within. So what do I mean by that? I explore, but within the bound of my income. I try not to. So let's say if I have $10 in my pocket, I'm not gonna say let's go out to Disney. $10 in my pocket, let's go out to Burger King or McDonald's or someplace that makes sense, right? So I think this is also important in the sense of business or in the sense of your goals. Yeah, you need to be able to take calculated risk. Don't just do anything that's crazy, or that might put you. Sure, high risk, high reward, but are you in a position to be able to take high risks? Or are you willing to lose it all? I feel like I'm not the type of person that's willing to lose it all. I'm more like, hey, there is a stop and sell position for me. It's like, hey, if the loss gets beyond this, it's not for me. It's time to walk away.
That's awesome, man. I want to quickly touch base. I don't know if you have any questions. Just quickly touch base while we're in the topic here. Your past, right? Like you coming to this country, your parents coming here. You said that, like, you were very ambitious. You're like, hey, I wanted to make, a certain amount of money, right? What like where did that thought process come from, right? Is it like poverty because from back home? Is it like just the culture of like, because our culture and our identity is really big, right? It's like hustle, you have to be doctor, engineer, or lawyer. Where did that come from, your mindset? Why, like, I need to make six figures as you were growing up?
Grew up poor, wanted to find money. So, I wasn't ready to sell weed on the corner. And so I needed to find a proper way to be able to make that six figures. Now, I think one of the important part is money knows money. What I mean by that is, if my parents had access to money, guess what? It would have been easier for me to multiply that, to be able to add on to it. So, not having the platform, or that's already, and I'm not taking anything away from my parents. Alhamdulillah, they were able to bring us to America, provide roof over our head, provide 3 meals a day, and give us the ability to
They did
go
the
to
best they
schools.
can with what they had.
Right, exactly. They did the best they could in their conditions. Now we are granted an opportunity. America is a place for you to be able to dream, and as long as you're dreaming realistically, you can turn it into a reality. So from that perspective,
We need to clip that up. I
Yeah,
edited needs to
that's
put that
very
in.
that's one of the reasons why they moved to this country, because there are a lot of intelligent people that do go through the education system in Bangladesh, but they're not given that opportunity to land a decent job. You might have an engineer who's really smart, really skilled, but then he's still driving a rickshaw because he couldn't find, or so was there. So that's one of the main reasons why they even move here, to say, all right, there will be a chance for them to do something with a degree.
100%, and the probability of you, not just that, is like, let's say, I know plenty of very intelligent people back home, but the proper opportunity is not there. And if the opportunity is there, they're giving it to the individual in a biased manner. It's like who you know. You understand? Unfortunately, and that's not just in Bangladesh, it's here too.
Yeah.
If you're a CEO, let's say I'm a CEO of a company, you think my son is going to start off at the mailroom? Absolutely not. I'm going to find ways to say, hey, you know what? Why don't you become an executive intern and hang out with the other C-suites or other directors or managers? So technically, isn't that being biased?
Yeah.
Absolutely, but that's
It's
just how it's going to
nepotism,
be.
yeah.
Nepotism isn't. It will always be around. Why is it a politician's son always becomes a politician, or more likely to become a politician? They're not much more. It's not that they have a much more different background than us. It's because they're exposed to the information. They're exposed to the network a lot quicker than you and I, or somebody who is not in there. Same thing with doctors. If you're a doctor, or let's say my kids, what's the first thing I'm going to do? I'm going to teach them what I know. Right? If you're a doctor, you're going to teach them, hey, this is the route that got me here, and that's the route that we will show them. We will teach them first.
Right.
And then,
If you want to go explore, you can.
Yeah, you can go explore if you want
After
to.
that, yeah. That's true. Brother, you have anything to that? So why don't we move to our second segment, right? I'm sorry, Zakir, our second segment is health and wellness, right? I think there's a lot to unpack there, because in the South Asian culture, in the Middle Eastern culture, and just any culture, I think, in general, especially nowadays, specifically speaking, mental health plays a big role in who we are today and the things that we do. But you have seems like your story is similar to a lot of ours in terms of resilience, right? In terms of being ambitious, and like we don't take no for an answer, or we don't stop, and we try to figure things out. But I think mental health and all these other health, physical health and emotional health and all that, plays a big role. How are you balancing that in your personal life to your professional life currently?
Absolutely. I think mental health, I think a lot of us in the South Asian community, we experience it, but we shy away from talking about it, or we feel like it doesn't exist. It's like, hey, it's a happy problem, right? It's what we call a shadaya problem, right? It's kind of like you have too much good in your life, and now you're thinking about mentality. But now to go back to it, I think the mental health really is impacted by the culture and where you come from. Absolutely, 100%. Let's say, for example, I couldn't be a doctor, or I wasn't an engineer, or I wasn't successful. If I was still, like, I'll give you an example. My dad, when I remember after a year of working at Geico, when when the bank balance was almost at zero, I was like, hey, so and so went to college and they're making $80,000, $90,000, and you, yeah, you said you were such a good student, you're doing everything well. Why is your bank balance zero? By the time you buy a house, it'll be 15 years, 20 years. How am I gonna get you married? You see, now if I wasn't able to overcome that or change the trajectory of my career, then you would have to constantly be in that pressure, constantly be in that that concept that, hey, compared to your cousins or compared to so and so, but nobody will say what my cousin or my friends or the other people that they compare you to, what facilities they had. Right? So it's not necessarily an apple to apple comparison, but the parents are, or anybody else who's comparing, I don't want to just, say it to my parents because everybody else's parents, right? They're not going to take the time. In their mind, they're like, hey, I sent you to school and they went to school. What did they learn different? But they don't know. Perhaps, like I remember going in school and you go to a CUNY school, you kind of get whatever teachers you had. Most of my knowledge I learned from YouTube, Khan's Academy. I was my best friend growing up. I think most of my econ and financial courses I learned from Khan Academy on YouTube, right? And alhamdulillah, that guy's a Bengali guy, and he was a great guy, great example. And those are the things. Sometimes I see those people, and I'm like, you know what? If they can do it, why not us? There is a probability. It makes me happy when I see like Bangladeshis, or I'm just going to say Bangladeshis because, I think Indians made it everywhere now. So I don't want to just say South Asian.
The CEOs running a lot of big corps, right?
India's, you look at the politics, we had a presidential candidate from India. You look at most of the governments in England, you had Rishi, who was the prime minister. So
all the tech CEOs
all the tech CEOs. I think India went from top 10 economy to top 3 or top 4 now in the last 5 years.
And they're rising rapidly.
100%. And eventually they will control everything globally.
Between them and China, I think so, yeah.
Between them and China. And I think I'm going to say not so much of China. You know why? Because we're biased towards them a little bit. Indians, we're kind of like that, the brown community, we're kind of like that middle ground. Nobody particularly hates us completely, and they don't absolutely love us either, and we can secretly kind of like under the radar, and we're going places. Right, and that's happening, and I would love to see. Tech is one space where being brown is beneficial.
Has advantages.
100%. If the computer, something is not working, the brown guy is the one they're gonna look at, right? So if I'm walking into an interview tomorrow, and there is,
he's hired automatically. I don't know what he's gonna say yet, but he's hired.
I think that's where racism is real. I think it's real. And being brown and racism helps us in the tech space or even in the medical space. You see a doctor, you're going to trust the brown doctor over somebody else. All of those. So going back into the mental health space, you see that pressure that the community builds you. If you're not able to come out of it, or if you're not able to execute on a timely manner, that builds onto your mental health. Let's say if I wasn't able to get a better job, then I would be stressed out.
Yeah, you could also become depressed, right? Because you're like, oh, I didn't have the same trajectory as a lot of other people that I met, or the people that my parents are comparing me to. So there's like a cultural, a societal sort of
expectation.
Expectation that beats you down and sometimes keeps you there.
And that's that has a lot of side effects. So now let's say you aren't doing well. Think about it. Let's say my life didn't turn out the way it did now. Let's say if I was still going in that route, when I get married, guess what's going to happen? I'm going to have to live in a household where it's, extended, shared, everything. Now the chances are the in-laws getting into arguments is much higher, right? The chances are somebody being on my business is a little bit higher. The chances of everything being, under a microscope is a lot higher. And that, over the course of time, that adds onto the stress or the depression or whatever it is to my wife or my parents. And then that will eventually lead to my kids. So you see that cycle of depression, the cycle of mental health, mental wellness, it becomes generational unless you're able to get out of it. Alhamdulillah for us, it kind of worked out in a manner. that we were able to get out, and we were able to, we're still with our parents. We still live in like, for example, the way my household is set up is, it's kind of like they call it mother-daughter place. So we have a place for us, my wife, my kids, and whatnot, and then we have a place for my parents, and then we have a place whenever my brother wants to crash in, right? And my brother's setup is also the same exact way. And because we, at the end of the day, just my brother and I, we grew up very close, and over the course of time, we wanted to be in a place where we still have each other, and we still have, independence. Plus, we're able to be independent and also be able to depend on each other if need to.
And I think that's really strong, right? Like, I know we're talking about our mental health right now, but I think that contributes to our mental health, because knowing that you have that support system, whether it's from him to you or to you to him, I think you guys can depend on each other and still be independent. I think that builds a solid foundation for the future, right? And I think it kind of eases your mental health also,
100%.
because you're not taking on all the pressure like some of us are, right? I'm sure a lot of us will do that as well, but there's a lot of us who have that stability, who have that kind of help.
I think that's what the root cause or root foundation of, let's say, what I mean by that is, let's say you were thinking suicide, right? It's very big in Asian community, but we don't talk about it. We hide it under the radar. I know I'm not going to mention her name, so close friend of mine that passed away because of that. And we see the result, but we don't see what caused it. We never really talk about, hey, X, Y, and Z happened in his life, and as a result of that, it ended his life, at a shorter than expected. Right, so and it's not like major crazy things. It's those little things like, hey, maybe not getting the job on time, maybe having a little bit of family trouble, or maybe having siblings disputes, right? Or maybe your parents pressured you to be a doctor. Now you're a doctor, but you hate your life because you have no. Let's say you're a doctor, and I'm sorry, I'm not bashing doctors, but let's say you're a doctor. Now you're on call all the time. Now you have no time for your wife. Now you have no time for your family. Guess what? Remember, you see it on TV where it's like, oh, my parents have no time for me, blah, blah, blah. Like, well, your parents gave you a Mercedes, gave you a Lamborghini, gave you all of that. What are you complaining about? But psychologically, the absence of a parent, the absence of a father, the absence of that love is what really gets you to having that unstable mental health. Or else, if that wasn't the case, then why would rich people suicide?
And they're usually some of the unhappiest people.
Well, exactly. Money is not the source of happiness. Money is just one item on the multiple variable that really stabilizes you.
Yeah. I love that. It gives you the freedom of choice, right? Like, I think that's a tool that gives you a freedom of choice. But I think we mix it up because when you come from poverty and you're poor, you mix it up as like money equals happiness, because I see everyone else being happy when they have it. Right, because they have access and they have all these things. But I think what people forget to mention and people forget to see, especially in our society, is that it's a tool for you to kind of have that freedom of choice to do whatever you want.
And then you're sharing that experience with people that you care about, right? So as Shaquille asked earlier about separating the professional and the personal life, right? So going back to that, what do you do on your personal life, right, that allows you to have that sort of peace and happiness, right? Or are you the type that works 24/7, and then you balance it and you find how do you find that balance between the two?
Right. I think we got lucky, or I wouldn't say lucky.
I would say you worked on it. I don't think it's luck. Like,
yeah.
You
so
worked behind the scenes.
So here's a funny story.
Tell us. This is getting juicy.
I planned out my life in a way that is kind of like, hey, I know what I want and I know what I don't want, right? It's kind of like let's say you go on a date, right? It's not like more like, let me go discover this person, find out what it is. I'm more like, hey, I already know what I want. If I hang out with this person 10 minutes or 20 minutes or 30 minutes, if they don't click those boxes, I'm not going to go change myself to fit that criteria, or I'm not going to want them to change to fit my criteria. We're at a stage where you already got to know what you like and what's valuable to you versus what's not. And if just because somebody didn't match, it doesn't mean that it's not they're a bad person or I'm a bad person. It just means that we're just not compatible with one another. And life is a long term. At 21, 22, 23, 24, you get married, but you got another 80 years to live. Do you want to be unhappy for the next 80 years? So to answer your question, how did we? Well, remember I was in tech space. So I was working after my first job in North Carolina. I wanted to be back in New York. So I was there for 6 months. And then I moved to New York working out of Soho. And that's where I hit my six figures.
job
Another QA job. So
locally.
I wanted to be home. Money is good, but if you're not spending it with your family or friends, it doesn't really do much.
You quickly realized that when you were down there.
Yeah, you get homesick. You see, money is there, and also because financially, I'm like, hey, you know what? Why pay rent there and then live that lifestyle there and then have to do here? I can't be rich in that manner. So you need to be financially smart. So I said, hey, you know what? Let's be home. And also, I used to play a lot of sports, so I wanted to be closer to like the New York cricket, New York soccer, and everything else that I play. And so that's where I hit my six figures at 22. And I was like, all right, you know what? I'm kind of a little bit ahead of my game, ahead of my own targets that I had. And then from there, I knew what kind of significant others I wanted, right? So, obviously.
Where do you think, sorry to cut you off, Zakir, where do you think that mindset came from, right? Like, especially given that at a young age, you're like, okay, I have these financial targets and goals, you hit them. Where do you think, I think obviously culture played a role, but I mean, even from a mental standpoint, right? Like, where do you think that all that came from? Because that's a lot of, I think, I might be wrong, there's a lot of pressure, mental pressure, right? Hitting goals, and then also like, now I want to find that significant other. Like, where do you think that mindset came from?
Remember, in the back of my mind, I knew what kind of life I wanted to live. I wanted to travel. I wanted to be around my kids because my dad was driving cabs, so they weren't around. You see movies, you see how white people, they show up with, I'm sorry,
No, I mean, it's true. No, it's an open forum.
They're allowed, they're at their kids' soccer game and they're showing up. That kind of thing doesn't happen in brown household. Brown household, they just whip you. Hey, why are you watching TV for too long? They're kind of like yelling at you or something. I don't know, but I'm not going to generalize and say everything, but at least all the household that I knew, it was a pretty norm, especially in my household. So my mom was very supporting, and my dad was a little bit more strict, typical Bangladeshi father. So I wanted to be different, and I wanted to make sure that when we live our life, and I understand why parents were like that, why my parents were like that, because their parents were like that. So it was kind of like that trickle-down effect.
Yeah, it's a generational thing. Yeah.
In order to break the barrier, somebody has to break it. Somebody has to be different. Somebody has to do something differently. So I wanted to be around, and I wanted to not have the pressure of living paycheck to paycheck. So that's what drove me to, and in my mind, I thought six-figure salary was the one that's going to give you that independence, right? So that's what drove the number, that how much money you want to make. Because, in high school, where do you make 100 G's? That sounds like a big thing. But now you make 100 G's nothing. It's like, okay, you're at the new, minimum wage. Yeah, welcome. Wage, yeah. Right? So, and I think the timing of it is important too. Hitting six figures at 22, 23, you're able to do much in a brown household. That's where brown household also is beneficial. If I was living with my parents, the reason I was able to be successful is because, alhamdulillah, I didn't have to pay rent. Right? I didn't necessarily have to pay the gas bill. I didn't have to pay. Sure, I contributed whenever they needed it, but I was able to save everything. So, from my six figures, I think the year one, I was able to save about 80-90% of it. And that's what led me, now my goals changed. I was like, hey, you know what? I'll share with you a little bit in terms of, I guess we're going back and forth between mental health and career development.
We'll go to the financial and that part, and the independent part. I do want to ask you a question about that. How do you think you got into the habit of saving?
Savings?
Like just from a young age. You're saying that like I saved at this young age. I know this is more financial, so we'll get there. But high level, how did you get into that habit?
I wanted to be able to have I saw some of my coworkers, Asian coworkers and white coworkers, and I saw them being able to live a sustainable life and not have to stress on a paycheck to paycheck. So in my mind, I said, hey, in order to reach that, you need to be able to have certain amount of savings, and you need to be able to invest that money and get your, what they call you got to get your money working for you. Well, my parents did, and most people, as soon as they have some money, they lend it to relatives. And the relatives, and that's what pissed me off a lot.
They still do, yeah.
Yeah, that's what used to piss me off a lot, is that my parents would lend a lot of money to their relatives, and they would give back like 10, 15, 20 years later. I mean, and we're not earning interest on it. interest is haram, but they're gonna give back. Let's say you lend somebody $10,000 today, they'll give you back $10,000 10 years later. What good is it now? I can buy bananas and roti with it.
Yeah,
That's
it.
not good.
Yeah, I want to quickly go back to what you were saying earlier. What are some of the strategies would you say like that you're utilizing today, right, in terms of balancing that professional life and personal life in terms of your mental health?
Right. So going back into that, I'm a planner, so I used to plan things out. I say, you know what, when I get married, I need my wife to also be contributing to the income, because if you want to live a lifestyle where you're able to work, where you're able to hang out, and blah blah blah, and give time to your kids, you need your significant others to also be able to contribute. So in that case, I got into disagreements with my parents. They already had my cousins and some of the other people lined up. Now imagine, if I didn't marry my wife and I married somebody else, lifestyle would have been completely different. I would have to now, immigrant household, what do you got to do? You got to bring your wife back. And then you got to bring her entire generations here. Because if you don't, then they talk,
Yeah,
they're
the
gonna talk
gushti. You got to bring the
stuff.
gushti back.
You got to bring the gushti. So now guess what am I doing? I am enslaved to their well-beings. So where am I living my life? Where am I doing the things that I want to enjoy? Where am I now giving time to my kids? All that is going to disappear. So in that case, when I met my wife, she was working for a government agencies, and she was so happy. She's like, oh my God, I want this job. It's a government job. I was like, nope, that's not going to work. We need to find you to something that you enjoy, something that not just pay the bills, but that will correlate with our lifestyle and what we want to do. And she agreed to the lifestyle that we want to live, and that's what she wanted to, she envisioned doing as well. And we used to do a lot of traveling, and that's how she got into tech. So you see, the professional life, we work from home, so it doesn't really matter what kind of company. I work for a hedge fund, healthcare, major banks. Most of the organization I work for, Fortune 500 companies. But we were able to be in a situation where I get to work from home, and that was a need. I needed to be able to have that. If not, 5 days a week, I at least needed to work from home at least twice or three times a week. And there's no point of me working from home if my significant others couldn't do it. So that's where we had her also get into the tech space. And that's how I think it really helped me to be able to balance my life. And with two stream of income coming into a household, it's really good. Now that, if I get sick, right? If I get sick, I don't have to really worry. If she gets sick, she doesn't really have to worry. And together, alhamdulillah, if everything goes well, we're able to grow exponentially. And so, my wife, she contributed to the overall being of how our family is structured. And that's the same way my brother is doing it. My brother and my sister-in-law. Mind you, my father, he doesn't want the wives working.
Yeah.
Right? And traditionally, they don't. They say, hey, the wife. Then my question is, why do you need a daughter-in-law that has a master's degree or a bachelor's degree or well-educated? Or do you want an educated housewife? Or do you want an educated servant? And then if let's say if that's the case, you get a really educated daughter-in-law, and now they say something smart. Where you gonna be? Bad dope.
Yeah.
You get what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's where your culture, and all of that that dynamics needs to work out. So alhamdulillah, we planned everything out in that manner. Even our wedding, to a point where we're like, hey, we wanted to save money. I don't want to feed 1,000 people that's gonna walk away from the wedding and talk shit about me right away. What's the point? Why not, instead of, because I had one of my business partner, he spent well over 6 figures, and he was in debt for the next 3-4 years. I don't want to be in debt. If I want to live, remember, within the means of my income, if I have $10, I want to live within that $10. A lot of people sometimes say rich and poor. You're only rich if you have income or lifestyle that is excessive or more than what you earn. If you're a billionaire, but you want to, take loans on other billions, or you have interest, and your interest is you want to own 10 private jets, or your interest is you want to own an island, you're poor. So if you're not living within the means of your income, you're poor.
Yeah, that's true.
Right? So, alhamdulillah, for us, it just worked out in that manner, and it really helped. The pandemic really helped us, because now we got away with not having a big wedding, and nobody's disappointed that we got married in pandemic. So I think Allah is he understood my plans, and he has certainly helped along the way. And I'm not saying the pandemic was a good thing. I would say that we took the best advantage of the situation given,
Right.
to benefit us.
I have one last question. I know in this segment. How is your physical health? Like, how are you guys doing in terms of the physical health and obviously we'll talk about the financial health, but like, how are you guys playing a role in the physical health in terms of you guys are so busy doing so many different things?
Oh, for sure.
Because you're doing remote work and a lot of it is sometimes sitting down, attending meetings, right? So how do you keep active, or just the kids could keep you
Because
active?
when I work from home, I'm eating half the time.
Yeah, no, I'm with
I'm
you.
off camera, so I'm eating.
That makes sense. With us, we both my wife and myself and my family, we have been actively involved in sports. So I grew up with sports. If you follow soccer, the only American Bangladeshi youth soccer team that plays in Division 4 FIFA is our soccer club. And then so you can look up ASAB. They're getting big, and we have players, inshallah, that will be playing. They play for different universities on full scholarship, and we have players that will, inshallah, play for our Bangladesh team in the upcoming future. So there's a lot of good things coming out of that. And any times that we get after work, on weekends, we're actively involved with soccer. And then I also play a lot of cricket within the cricket community here. We have a big cricket community here. That's Bakanai, NYBCL, BCL, and so I've been in sports a lot. So along with that, gym.
You also go to gym?
Yeah, we also go to gym. My wife and I, we go. We used to work out together. Now with kids, we have to balance it out. She goes sometimes in the morning. I go at nighttime, and you gotta be able to be in a place where we complement each other, and we try our best. I'm more of like the lazy one. She does 90% more than I do now. But I keep my goal is the financial strategies, get everything going so that we can continue to maintain the lifestyle. And her goal is to make sure we have a lifestyle.
Yeah. Mashallah, that's amazing, man. Wow. That's amazing. I might have to edit that part out because my wife looks at me like, she was like, here's the, why can't you be like him?
Trust me, when the wives get together, they'll talk shit about both of us.
Yeah, that's true.
So we're
That's so true. Okay, so but third segment right here. Look, I don't know if you want to introduce it or if we just kind of let him. Okay, so Zakir, so our third segment is like financial independence, right? Which I think, obviously, the whole concept and the ideology behind General Issue Icons is for us to really have thought leaders such as yourself and entrepreneurs such as yourself really talk about and break down the financial independence, right? Like what they've gone through, how they're doing some of the, talk about some of the strategies. Can you kind of give us a glimpse into your world, because I know you're doing a lot of things, and just kind of share and highlight some of the things that you're doing and how you've kind of continued to do, and what are some of the things that we can all benefit from?
for sure. So
Like from like the beginning, like how'd you, like we heard like you got exposed to QA, then you pursued it, and then you suddenly say, I'm going to open it up, right? So how did it open up? How did you grow? Where are you now?
And the reason why we're asking is because some of our audience are maybe younger, right? Some of them who are like aspiring entrepreneurs like you, back in the days, like they want to maybe follow your path, right? Or kind of some similar trajectory.
100%. So I think one of the things that so just to go into the financial freedom, right? What does financial freedom means? To me, it's pretty straightforward. You want to be able to achieve whatever it is that you have on your bucket list without putting strain on your mental health, without having to put in the extra amount of hours or whatever the case might be. And most importantly, it needs to be sustainable. You need to be able to do it over the course of time. So, and a lot of this knowledge didn't necessarily, I didn't wake up one morning and know it. The people around me or my surroundings really helped. So going back into when I was 23, my coworker and I really wanted to buy a BMW, but that was bad finance. So I didn't know that. I thought, being cool at that time was more important than financial freedom. Who the hell cares about financial freedom at 23? You just want to be the coolest kid on the block with the nicest car, nicest, whatever else, shoes or clothes or whatever the case might be. So I had a coworker and he said that, hey, Zach, you don't want to buy the car. What you want to do is you want to buy a 2-family home, and what you want to do is you want to make sure that the mortgage is less than what your income is you get from. So the first house you buy, you want to make sure that the 2 apartments, the 2 legal apartments, you can rent it out, cover for mortgage, and live frugally on the basement. In New York City, even though in some places it might be illegal, so he said to buy a multifamily house. And then he said, if you want to live luxury, do it with your second house. So that means now you have a house and you're able to save the the whatever earnings you have, you're able to save it. So if you could get a house in, with your salary in at that time, now you got to do save another 2 years and you could get your second house. So my goal was, hey, all right, no, he gave me the advice, and he told me, and I used to see him do it all the time. He had a couple of properties in New York. He had one in Jersey, and he had a property in Poconos. And this was before Airbnb became really big. And I used to see him, like, more than doing work, he was managing his properties. And he enjoyed doing it. And he would go out on cruises, and he would take his kids out, and he had a Mercedes, I think it was MLK. So I was like, hey, that's a life. And he was 38. So that's a lifestyle. And he shared that information. He said, hey, Zach, I'm going to share it with you because you went to Berwick, I went to Berwick, I want to give you some information. And that was the weirdest reason for somebody to give you information.
That's how it's the alumni network sometimes work. Is like, hey, we just have some common point, and I just want to share this knowledge.
Right. Nobody was like, maybe that was, I don't know why, too much. Sometimes I sit there and I wonder, I said, why did he have to drop that line? But I guess maybe he wanted to find a common ground so that I listened to him. And I did. So, I bought my first home. And then after I bought my first home.
So no BMW.
No, sir, no BMW.
You're convinced.
I was still with my Acura and.
So you were convinced. He sold.
Yeah, I was convinced. So now what do we want to do? Now I wanted to do what he did, but I wanted to do it better because he also told me he started when he was 28. So I said, you know what? I'm starting at 23, so I want to expedite my time frame. So I want to be where you are by the time I'm 35, or right around that time. So I bought my first home, I think 2016. It was a 3-family home, and I used to live in the basement. And even after I got married, even though we were able to afford a second home, my wife, she understood the long-term vision. She said, hey, if we stay in the basement for a little bit longer, we can afford a third home, right? So going back into how did all that money come about? The salary alone doesn't get you all of that. No. So what did we started doing is, remember, my brother. So my brother and some of his friends, we felt like, hey, you know what? They need to, because they weren't sure what to do with their life, or they didn't necessarily, have a career goal or something that they want to do. So she said, hey, why don't you guys try this IT route?
Who said that? You said that.
Yeah, so, they would ask me, hey, Baya, what do you do, and how can we get into it? A lot of the time, if you're into mortgage, you don't really want to necessarily convince somebody to do something. If somebody is in a position where they're curious, now you give them information so it doesn't look like you're selling something. It's hard. If you're selling something, people aren't going to buy it. But if they need it and they're like, hey, I want to see whatever you did, I want to do that. How do I do it? Now you're giving me information and they get to make a decision. So I used to remember the place that I used to teach IT. I learned IT from. I used to teach for them, and I was a pretty good student.
That was the place where you paid like a couple of $1,000.
Yes, I paid $7,700 for that spot. So I started teaching on their behalf, and we opened up a place in the Bronx, Starling Avenue, right next to New York restaurants. I want to keep it quiet. The only reason because they no longer are in business. So that's the only reason I want to keep it quiet. But I'm very grateful to them because if that institute didn't exist, I probably wouldn't have somebody I trusted that would get me to where I'm at. But because they're no longer in business.
So you taught for them, and you're like, I could do this on my own.
I taught for them. And then what had happened was I didn't like their business process. I didn't like the fact that somebody should pay before, like, that amount before they have a job. Because why do people take these courses? Well, they need to better their life. How are they going to come up with that kind of money before they can see the result? We're constantly, sure, yes, the people are able to make 6 figures, but that's after they get the course. But before, the reason they're taking this course is because either they just finished college, or because they're struggling, or because they're not doing well. So I had a difference of opinion in terms of how the business model should be. So I found my other business partner, Shuman. I can name him because we still work together. And we started a company called Triage. And with that organization...
Sorry, you were going to say it.
Yeah, so Triage Tech Solutions. So what we did is say, hey, you know what, who are we going to teach? Start off with, because, in order to teach, you need to have a place. You need to make sure you have equipment. You need to make sure you have laptops, desks, and whatnot. We didn't have that kind of capital. And this is still going, I'm backtracking a little bit, 2013, 2014, right? So we started off with close friends, like my brother and some of his siblings, some of his relatives. We wanted to help them out. But again, if you teach something for cheap, people don't care. So we used to charge them, I think, $1,500, right? $1,500 to learn, $1,500 after you get a job. So we started teaching, and then once the first batch of 5 or 6 people, when they got jobs, then it just grew. So we went from 1,500, we started charging people 2,500, and then to a point where after that we say, hey, and the way that we used to break down our pricing, it was to learn, we'll charge you 1,500, and then once we help you get a job through mentoring, through education, through guiding you, interview preparations, and then providing any assistance that you may need on the job, you will give us the remaining money after you get a job. So with this business module, you feel more comfortable. You're like, hey, these guys will benefit from my success.
Correct. Yeah.
So yes, there is a tuition that you need to pay, because nobody does anything for free. Once you pay that, you know that there is more for them, or more for triage once you're successful. And
Like you're vested in the process of their successes.
right. And then what we did is we realized that other competitors were charging 3 times the amount, but whatever. Slowly, we started building a network of trusted individuals, people that believed in us, people that liked what we do. And we started doing, okay, we would charge them $3,000 tuition, and then we would charge them a percent of their first year's annual salary. So let's say you get a job that pays $100,000, right? Then you would give us 7%. So $7,000, and we'll give you 3 months or 5 months or 8 months to pay that back, right? Depending on your situation, where you're getting the job, what your current condition is and all of that stuff. There's a human element to it. You're not like, not necessarily like a bank, right? I wish that was the case. That would be much, much richer. But yeah, that's how we started doing it. And over the course of time from there, the QA was doing good. QA, it evolved. You went from manual testing to automation to now AI. And within the different tools that you have to learn, you have to keep yourself engaged. And then we learned there's a personality change. What happened is a lot of people like doing QAs. And a lot of people is like, hey, my cousin does QA. And, he came from Bangladesh and he's doing QA. And the QA market was predominantly for people that are a little bit more adults that were going from, let's say, driving yellow cab to driving Uber. That's when I took it. Well, I was the youngest kid, like in the class, and everybody else was either working Dunkin' Donuts or going from yellow cab to Uber, and they didn't want to deal with the technology. They're like, oh, we need to find something else. So it was very easy to get into the QA space at that time. If you spoke decent English, you got a job. Yeah. Better than a job. You got a great job. You got a job that you get to stay in New York. Yeah. But over the course of time, now as time went on, somebody's like, hey, somebody that graduated from a school or university in the US, they're like, I don't want to do the same QA job that my cousin does. I want to do something different. I'm better. Right? That ego factor comes into play. Right? Let's say, going back into the Bangladeshi household, if the cousin does QA, your dad is going to be like, well, why did you get the QA job too? So did the other guy that came from Bangladesh 6 months ago, or a year ago, or 2 years ago. So the ego started playing.
The competitiveness is always
it's always there, and you gotta embrace it. Don't try to eliminate it, embrace it, and become better. So my wife, she wanted to, remember we were trying to get her to change, so we put her into a business analyst course. But they weren't doing a good job with helping people with jobs. They did, I would say, 50% of the teaching, and then my wife and I, we would do a lot of driving around. We would do a lot of traveling. So I actually did a lot of the teaching while we were traveling, road tripping a lot. And then
so you were teaching her the other 50% of what BA
Right.
school should have. Okay.
Right. And then once she got a job, we're like, hey, that's a business. I think if you could do it, there are plenty of people just like you that might want to learn how to be a BA that may not like the technical side that comes with QA, with automation and everything else. And that's how the BA course started. And similarly, we started with some of our family members, relatives, and my sister-in-law, and so on and so forth. And once people get jobs, their boyfriends, their girlfriends, their close friends, 100% of the course is really based on word of mouth. And that's the way that we prefer it, because I don't want the extra pressure. I don't want the pressure of convincing somebody to take the course, and let's say for some reason it doesn't work. I prefer the second method, which is if you know somebody that has done it and you know that their life has changed and now you just want to do the same thing as they did, well, we have a place and you can come and join. So the business process is the same, We charge them $3,000 to learn, and then helping them with polishing up their resume, helping them with interviews, helping them with job applications. So we have a team in place that helps to do all of those elements, and that's how the the entrepreneur side of things.
As the product speaks for itself,
Right.
right? And the outcome, right? I think that's the biggest thing when it comes to zero marketing costs, because that's the generally asked, like, how do you expand? How did you get more students, right? But
Zero marketing cost. And most importantly, there is zero cost in everything. The only thing I pay for is a Zoom subscription.
Oh, you do it virtually?
Yeah, we do it
Everything's
virtually. We used to teach in person. So remember the first house where my wife and I used to stay in the basement? We had another room there. And we were able to fit like 14, 15 people. Not office. Office is a luxury. That was the classroom. Right. So that, and then right after that, a batch or two batch later, things were going really good. We have had batches that 100% of the people got jobs. Like 27 people out of 27 would get a job. No, sorry, not 100%. The 100% was 13 out of 13. The biggest batch we had was 27 out of 28% got a job. The one person had to go to Bangladesh and get married. And that kind
Oh
of got
my
in the way.
God! So you're changing lives out here, man.
Alhamdulillah, in a way, where the lives are changed, but most importantly, the community was changing, and everybody that I know, like I love the fact that when I walk into some place and I see some of my students, and alhamdulillah, they're doing good. Like the best message that I get from my students is like, "Hey Zakir, I just closed on a house," and they're like 24, 25, 26. Or hey Zakir, like I have another student, he loves cars. So he knows, I convince people not to buy cars. But so he would drive a Porsche or something. Zakir, I got a new one. Like, all right, bad investment, but hey, as long as that's what makes you happy. So yeah, I think roughly about 56 or 57 people got jobs over the course of my teaching career on the IT side of things, on that side. So that's one part of finances, and then obviously the real estate investment, and then we have a staffing company. That's where the real money is. So what exactly is staffing company? So let's say we are in a tech revolution kind of place, and most of the engineers, most of the nerds, or everybody else you may call it, they're all located globally, predominantly India. So what happens is, let's say you have Bank of America, you have Goldman Sachs, you have Goldman Sachs, you have Morgan Stanley, right? They want to build something. They don't have the engineers in-house. So what would they do? They would say, hey, you know what? They would outsource. If you could be the middle person that kind of say, hey, Morgan Stanley, I have a solution to provide for you, and you have a team that delivers, you can charge Morgan Stanley $100, $200, $300, $500 per hour per engineers, whereas you get the resource from India or Colombia or Mexico, Bangladesh, and you can pay them their rate that they would accept it as, $30, $35, $40. So over the course of time, we were able to build network with C-suites, with our existence, with our relationship. And
Who did most of that? Like, was it you? Like the relationship building with the C-suite?
Yes, the C-suite was myself, and then my third job, the person that was my manager, he and I became very close. So together, we started another company. It's called Foresight Technologies. And through that, what we used to do is, and over the course of time, because we work with other directors and managers, as they need problem solved, as they need solutions, technological solutions, they're able to reach out to us. And we were able to be the person that they could count on who will deliver the projects. And that's where the I would say the real money is at, in terms of building wealth, in terms of developing, in terms of becoming a proper company and proper structure.
so you run all three still.
Yes, we still run all four. Yes.
Four.
Well, the QA course we still run, the BA course we still run, the Foresight Technologies, and then I have a full-time job. And the pandemic was a blessing, because if you're in tech during pandemic and I know people, all of my students were doing like 2 jobs, 3 jobs. So in a year, they were pulling in, $250,000, and it was a blessing. Those that, right time, right place. If you're in that environment at that time, and you're already in tech space, you made millions. It's kind of like if you're in real estate. Before all the agents, everybody wanted to be a real estate agent. Why? Houses, they made money. So I think life works in that manner. If you're in the right time, right place, you made money. Some of my friends made shit tons of money from crypto.
Oh yeah.
Right? They made crypto. They became overnight crypto broker, stock broker, and blah blah blah. Some people hate on you when you post those on Insta. I love it. I'm more like, hey, somebody did it. Don't hate and drag the guy down. Find out what route he took and take the same route. You know, you don't have to hate on somebody else for you to be successful. Identify what they did well, and then do it yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. Are you you work at a hedge fund now, right? And so how's that going? Like what's making you not want to leave that and focus on the other three businesses and scale that?
Mostly because it doesn't interfere with my schedule to operate the other 4 businesses. So I worked there for close to 5.5, 6 years now. And in the sense that, you know, I'm able to work on my own schedule and be able to also run all of my other organization. So with that kind of flexibility, and they pay quite handsomely, all of those together, it didn't really, if I had to, if let's say, you know, they changed their structure or I had to go into the office or something like that, I would walk away. But it hasn't been that way. So why fix something if it's not broken?
Exactly. Yeah, no, that's amazing. Out of all your businesses, which one do you say is making you the most?
Out of all my business, probably my salary. Salary is probably, it's consistent. It's always there. The other courses, the BA and the QA courses, during the pandemic, they made money. We have had good $1 million years.
$1 million years?
Yeah, we have had
during the pandemic.
Yeah,
That's from students.
just from student getting
That's
jobs.
amazing.
Wow.
Yeah, we
Yeah, right now, one of the things like I'm hearing the market is a little oversaturated.
100%. Yeah,
So-
very.
So now people that would, you know, go for QA, I don't know if they're still pursuing it or if they're trying to go into AI. Like, what's happening?
What are you seeing? Yeah,
Evolution. You see, I remember when I first started it, a lot of people were afraid that you have to learn to code, and they didn't want to do the QA anymore. And
like
the rumors were there.
Selenium or something? Or?
Yeah, so at that time, you know, a lot of people were doing manual testing, and they needed to learn, because remember the pool of people that got into QA were not technologically advanced or savvy at that time, but the career was there. It was changing. Now you needed to learn to code. So you see, if there was 100 people that was qualified that time, only now 50 people is qualified to proceed forward. And now with that time, just recently, last year when AI came into space, ChatGPT, now out of that 50 people, maybe 15 to 20 people is going to be able to proceed forward. You need to consistently educate yourself with the latest technology, and the competitiveness is there. So I wouldn't, like, you know, when people come to me and say, hey, should I get into it? Absolutely not. You should only get into it if you understand what it takes and if you have what it takes. So whoever is teaching the courses is also very important. A lot of the time, everybody wants to become teachers. A lot of my students, because in their mind, they're thinking, oh my God, easy money. I teach 2 people, that's $6,000. Right? And that's how it is. But, you know, when friends teachers, that's the other downside. You don't take it seriously. You're like, today I don't feel well. Hey, tomorrow I don't feel well. Now, guess what? If you don't get a job, you're like, I tried it. You know, there's no job. You understand? But you didn't give it due diligence. You didn't give it enough effort. But
they don't see the value in it.
They don't see the value. But with all of that being said, if you want to be in QA space now, you have to take into consideration that you have to be tech savvy. You have to learn how to code. You should, you know, slowly have a decent amount of education with computers and the tech space. And now, not only that, you got to learn the latest tools, and you also got to be able to be in the space where you're working with the AIs, artificial intelligence. You're working with that space. If you are willing to do all of that, it's great. Plenty of people are still getting jobs. It's just not as easy as it used to be. If there's 100 people getting jobs in 2014, 2015, from those 100 people, only maybe 10 people will now be able to keep up.
Got it. And in terms of your course materials, I mean, you would need to now start teaching those elements as well, or
Yes.
you didn't need to in the past.
Right. You need to be able to dynamically change your curriculum.
Right.
And you need to be able to teach the list. But now you see a lot of people that got lazy with making that money. They don't want to go back and learn the new stuff. They're like, I just want to make that quick buck.
Right.
So their goal is not change. Their goal is, I just want to make that let's say 10 students, $30,000. That's all they want to do. And they don't care if they extinct. Which they will. They should. I'm sure that if one course is, and I genuinely believe that if you're not putting out value, like QA courses that we had, is slowly declining, and the quality of students is not there anymore, right? Now think about the pool that I mentioned, the people that are very good, people that are educated. Now they're like, hey, I could do QA, I could do BA, I could do project management, I could do product management, I could be a developer. So they're qualified for all of those.
Right.
So why go the QA route only?
Yeah. Because are you guys teaching prompt engineering now or no?
No, we haven't started. We do DevOps, we do QA, but we noticed that the one area that's still excelling, or that's actually in very good demand, is still the business analyst. And the reason for that is, even recently, I think it was the CEO of ChatGPT. He mentioned that they need people. The technology is there, but they need creative thinkers. You need people to be able to say, hey, I want a technology that does X, Y, and Z. And then the engineers or the technology will build it. So people with liberal arts, people with English, people with creative majors, those are the people that are in need. So a business analyst, a product manager, those courses are, I would say those are the ones that is in demand, and that will probably consistently be in demand for the next 4 or 5 years.
Yeah. Well, my major is information systems, and growing up, I always had confusion between what's the difference between a data engineer, data analyst, a business analyst. Like, there's all these sort of similar sounding, careers, but what do they really do? There's a computer scientist, right? Like, what are the differences? And the business analyst position, I'd say they're the middle net between the tech guys and the business people. So they need to know how to translate coding language, and they need to understand the stakeholders to understand what kind of product are we trying to create. So especially as, I guess, beginners in the career as a business analyst now, what would be the right trajectory or right path to go to say, all right, I understand both sides and I need to build out something, or have AI build out something for me.
Right, for sure. I think you're right on track in terms of a lot of people generalize everything as IT. It's kind of like, hey, what is your relative do? They're in the medical field. Okay, are they a doctor? Are they a nurse?
They say, oh, you do IT. I'm like, I don't do computer help if your computer breaks up. But I always have to clarify that, because then you're the phone support, tech support.
Yeah, 100%. A lot of people don't know the difference, and they just generalize as IT. It's kind of like, I have a neighbor, and she says her son is a doctor because he goes to the hospital wearing a scrub. We find out is not the case. He's a physical therapist. So it's kind of like this. To the unknowns, everything is just medical field. To the unknowns, the people that are not familiar, everything is IT. So a business analyst, if you want to be a business analyst, I think the most important skills you should have: communication. Whether it's written communications, whether it's verbal communication, whether it's you just hosting a meeting, or having a lunch with stakeholders, or having joint application development session with stakeholder, that's the most important part. Because you're not necessarily translating code. That's technical business analyst. That's, business analyst, you getting in the door. Now, once you learn the technology and you want to ask for another $10,000 more on your salary, now you are a technical business analyst. And then you become a product owner or product manager. And then you start becoming the line of business, meaning you direct that particular product line. So to start off, you don't necessarily need the coding aspect of it. And as a matter of fact, you may not even ever need it. If you're a business savvy person, you become the middleman. You become the bridge between the IT. So let me clarify this a little bit. Let's say you work for JP Morgan Chase, right? Now, you could be a personal banker at JP Morgan Chase. The software that you build, or the software that you use, not build, the software that you use, somebody built that. Not you as a personal banker, you didn't build it. But you may have an IT team within JP Morgan Chase that built that. But you as a personal banker, you're not going to be talking to that IT guy and say, hey, can you build me this? No. What happens is, let's say the director of personal banking or regional director of personal bankers, or whatever the case is, they will have an idea. Say, hey, next year we want to improve X, Y, and Z product. Now, once they do that, they will say, hey, Zakir, now can you, get all of this together and work with the IT guy and make sure they build it. That's you as a business analyst.
That's a requirement.
Now, how often do I need to meet with you? That depends on the depth or the scope of work. If whatever you're describing is super simple and easy, I may need to meet with you once or twice a week. And as I work on this product with you a lot longer, now I can become the go-to person. You'll collaborate with me rather than giving me directions. We'll be working together to identify what we want to build, what we not want to build, what we need to massage within the system. And then I get the IT guys, the technology team, to build it out. And when they build it, before I give it back to you, I check to say, hey, are they delivering what we asked for? If they did, I give it back to you. Now, how do you go on about doing that? That's what this course is. So that's the BA side of things. You're the middleman. Now, let's say what is QA? QA is, remember, when the IT team builds something, before they give it back to me, they want to make sure that they're not giving me something that's broken or that's not working as expected or as I would. Because let's say they give it to me once, I'll be like, the second time I'll be pissed. So they want to assure that their product is sufficient before they give it to me or external customer, who the person is. So that's the QA side. How do you go on testing a software? How do you go on making sure everything is working as expected? Is the QA side of things. It's kind of like you're building a house. You have somebody come and inspect the house, right? That's QA. Now the contractor that's building it, you're making sure that between the homeowners and the construction folks, the middlemen, that's your BA. And then you have, obviously there are more titles. You have DevOps, you have front-end engineers, back-end engineers, all of those. But we leave it off to those IT guys. Those are you need to spend 6 months to learn those.
So did you have to learn all this skill set yourself? Or is there a particular courses you already have ready to these, or how are we going to teach our curriculum?
Well, so for the BA part, yes, we worked with people in the industry. We worked with, I worked as a BA. So I started my career as a QA, but it didn't resonate with my personality. I wanted to lead, I wanted to manage, I wanted to know where the product and project was. So I went in from QA to BA to product management to a director, right? So that was how I enjoyed working and how I wanted to go. So as I was doing, progressing my career, and I worked with other individuals, that's, we find out, okay, what is not the bare minimum, what is needed for somebody to kickstart their career, as well as not just attain a job, somebody who can retain a job, somebody who's able to get their feet in there, do the work, and then excel, right? So that's kind of like how we organize our curriculum.
So I have two questions for you. Part of the what are the next steps question. One is, at the hedge fund, are you doing anything tech related, or what are you associate? What's your role at the hedge fund?
So within the hedge fund, what I do is I do the title, it's called infrastructure management. So basically making sure all of their techs, all of their computers, all of their softwares, all of their farmers, everything is up to date. We make sure we have the right vendors in place. We make sure that if any of the department has any issues, we're able to address those issues. Right, so that's what we do at the hedge fund.
Got it. And then my second question is, in terms of real estate, are you actively involved in real estate? I know you were.
Yes. So that's I think to segue into what's next is I think I have what we call professional. What do you call it? There's a word for this. Professional hazard or something. It's like when you get bored of doing the same thing. What do you call that? Occupational hazard. Right, so it's kind of like being in tech space for so long. It is interesting, but I got to a point where I learned about real estate. So remember, I wanted to hit 6 figures. That was the goal at that time. And then you surround yourself with other people that make 6 figures. You're like, that's nothing. And then you want to do more and more. So recently, about 2 years ago, I used to think, remember financial freedom. I used to think, if I have 2 homes, one I can live in, live on, and then a third home, once if we can get to it, whatever money we make, maybe that will pay my bills. Because at that time, I don't need money to buy more houses. I just want to maintain my lifestyle. So in my mind, I was like, if I have $5,000 of passive income every month, alhamdulillah, life will be okay. That's not too bad. $5,000, $60,000 a year, after pre-tax, because all these are cash money, and if it was real, that's like a 6-figure salary. So I was like, that was it. But then I met some people, I started going to different seminars, and I met this person that was doing $15,000 passive income from real estate. And then I met somebody that does $85,000 passive income. So one thing led to the other, and I start learning about different ways you can invest. In my mind, I thought you need to have, 20% down payment on every deal you do, or else you're not going to get a loan, or you need to have W-2 incomes. But as I work with loan officers, there's DSCRs, there is conventional loans, there is Fannie Mae, Fannie Mac, there is jumbo loans. There is so many different types of loans. There's hard money lending, all of that stuff. So that opened up my eyes, and I'm like, so now my goal is now if I can do in the next year or two, $30,000 passive income
Per month
then,
or
per month,
Real estate
per month,
investment.
from real estate. Then I would consider myself a real estate investor. Right now I'm experimenting. I think we are close to like 18, 19 and whatnot, but I definitely want to hit that 30. But I feel like it's a little bit of an addiction. Once you learn a trade and you're like, I know how to do this, and you have the fundings or you have the network. I don't want to say funding.
The resources.
You have the network and the resources. Why would you stop?
No, the sky's the limit.
Yeah, just at that point it's not necessity, but it's more like your brain's.
There you go.
What is retirement? Retirement is you waiting to die, right? So if you don't have something challenging you're doing every day, it's gonna be boring. So you gotta challenge your mind. You gotta challenge your brain. You gotta find a ways to keep yourself active. So
That's one of the talks that I have with my parents. They're like, they're bored. They're, it's praying, it's to watch TV, eat food, read. I catch my all day. It's like they have no hobbies.
I catch my dad watching the same Natox every day. I'm like, dude, I memorized this line. Just looking at you watching
I'm
it.
passing by it. I'm impressing.
And I'm like giving I know.
I'm not even watching
I'm
it.
not their age, so I just give them random ideas. Like, why don't you learn how to sew? My mom never learned how to drive, so I'm like, why don't you start learning how to drive? That way you could kind of.
My mom learned English.
So many so you're right. Like retirement, what are you gonna do?
Yeah.
What to keep yourself active?
And that adds to your mental stress. If you're retired and you're not doing anything, guess what? Oh, the sun is not taking me anywhere. Oh, I'm just bored at home.
I don't see my grandkids.
I don't see my grandkids enough. You see, all of that adds into it becomes a mental stress if you're not able to healthily manage that situation in a healthy manner. So what is mental stress? That's all it is. It's not like one morning you wake up, you have an illness. No, it's over the course of time, certain situations, certain conditions within your household, within your life that, has trickle-down effect. So I think if we are able to do a good job just being aware of the entire situations and then being able to progressively make changes without delaying it too much, I think we can eliminate a lot of those issues. It's kind of like, if you have an itch and you don't take care of it, the itch is going to eventually become a scar, and the scars will eventually lead on to something more. So you got to take care of those stuff earlier.
That mind engaged. as you
Yeah.
said.
One last question for you. How are you starting? For someone who's starting out new, right? Specifically in the real estate world that you're getting into, you're dipping your toes. What are you doing? Like, how are you getting the funds? What are you doing? Are you putting down 10-20%? What advice would you give someone who's starting out, who's like young?
For sure.
And then at the same time, someone who's like our age, like in their mid 30s, what advice would you give us, for example?
So it really depends on your financial abilities. I feel like there are so many. Remember earlier on I mentioned, I like to take on deals that I can financially do or capable of within the means of my income. I know that somebody else in my shoes probably would already be doing $50,000, but because they're more willing to take risk takers. Me, I'm like, I can't. Whatever I worked so hard for, I don't want to put that on jeopardy for anything, right? So whatever I can do, build at a steady level, I will. So somebody young, starting out very young, the first thing I would tell them is, find out how much money you have. So that's number one. Number two, now let's say you only have $50,000. It's going to be hard to get a property in the Bronx or Brooklyn, Queens, or any place. Now you got to say, okay, you know what? I only have $50,000. Now, granted, it really depends on multiple variables, but I'm just going to assume some variables. Let's say he has a steady job. If that's the case, if you have a steady job, steady means of income, then go ahead, put down 5%, put down 10%. Get a starter home, but always get multifamily. Try to get multifamily. I think that's the best way as for the first property. Always should be multifamily. Get that multifamily. A lot of the time people are like, oh, the interest rate is so high, so this, so that. Well, if it goes down, the house price is not going to stay the same. The $1 million today at 6% is going to be $1.2 million with 4%. So at least if you get it now, when the rate goes down, you can refinance, cash out, take some of that money and buy another home. You'll have 2 homes by the time next 2 years. But if you wait next year, you'll only have 1 home. And if the rate goes up again, now you lost equity. And chances are nothing ever goes down. It always goes up. It's just a personal habit.
Especially with real estate.
So especially with real estate, right? So if you are young and you have decent amount of money saved, don't worry about PMI or paying this or paying that, because chances are you're renting. That means you're paying somebody else's mortgage already. So financially speaking, you're already making a bad, investment in terms of calculation, like in terms of numbers. So don't worry about what the interest rate is, blah blah blah, but be safe in the sense that if you feel like, if I buy the 2-family with 5% down and my mortgage is $6,000 in a $1 million home, or at least make sure that you're able to get $5,000 or $5,500 in rental, so this way you're not going crazy, right? It should be somewhere in that ballpark.
I have a question.
Yeah.
On top of that.
And then the second part is, and the second part is, if you want to be a little bit safer, go to Binghamton, go to Albany, go to other, a lot of people were happy with Michigan 10, 15 years ago, and they made millions. And people that missed out on Michigan went into Buffalo. Yes. And people that missed out on Buffalo going to Binghamton. My thing is, those are not the only cities in the U.S.
Yeah.
Go to Mississippi, go to Alabama, go to Florida, go to Georgia, go to, Charlotte. There are plenty of cities. There are plenty of same opportunities. Don't make emotional decisions when it comes to finances. Make financial decisions. I'm sorry, you had a follow-up question.
No, the
Someone who's a little bit older, right? Like who's maybe settled, right? Like their family and whatever. They're still looking to either get their first or second property. What would you say? Or what advice would you give?
With older,
heck is the goal. Like, let's say most of us probably already owned one house. Right. Now we have income maybe to buy a second one, but we're like, well, we have all these other expenses, right? And then they're like,
Fear stuff,
fear, like whatever, job loss, or just cover expenses. I am saving, but do I put the saving into, Bitcoin or whatever, or do I go into buying another house? Like, what gives you that sort of understanding to say, pursuing this route is going to be a better
in my opinion, if you want steady real estate, steady, safe growth, I think real estate is the only, nothing beats it, right? Bitcoin, crypto, Ethereum, whatever the case is, stock market, Tesla, whatever you want to do, hit or miss, right? Things might go really well your way. Things may not go so well your way. With real estate, enjoy yourself. The other thing that I mentioned is I like to keep everybody in mind is you always want to have a reserve, emergency fund. The 50-30-20, 50% of your income. Make sure that all of your bills are paid. 30% you do it on the things that you like, things that you need, things that might be able to expand or please you. 20% you keep reserve, whether it's for investment, whether it's for something else. But it becomes harder. You see, when you're adult, you have kids, you have family, and all of that stuff. It's hard to live with that specific rule. But if you have a family, you already have a house, as long as you have 3 months of rental reserve, right? I think you'll be able to, anything after that, you should be able to confidently put towards another property investment. I feel like it's a safe bet. Now in New York City is a tough spot with bad tenants and somebody doesn't want to pay. But I think that's where you need to have a good human element to it. Do a good job with screening out the tenants. Don't charge, top buck. I usually, whatever the market rate is, I usually try to charge them $100 or $200 less, and I let them know. I say, hey, the rent is about $2,400. I'm giving you a $22 because I just want you to be good. I want you to be happy. I want you to take care of your family, and just to let you know, you're taking care of my family too. So in case you default or in case you're not able to pay, that impacts my family. So now once you build that relationship with that tenant, it's hard for people to be rude or mean and stuff, especially when you're being nice. But if you come off tough and you charge them $2,400, as soon as the water leaks, and you don't take care of it in 1 day, 2 day, 3 day, you know they're going to call the city. You know they're going to call everybody. You know they're going to give you a hard time. But once they know that you're compromising, you're sacrificing, it's hard for the other individual to immediately shut off on you. You know what I mean? So I feel like a lot of us forget that element of it. At the end of the day, they are also human. They need to know that you're also human. Sometimes just because you bought a house, they may think you're rich. But no, you just, yeah, that's the false assumption. You're just taking that money. You're the middleman. You're taking that money, putting it to the bank. But they don't know it. So sometimes you just have to educate them. You have to let them know the situation.
Man, this was a great episode. Any advice you would give to our viewers or listeners? Anything you want to share? If you can kind of talk about.
Inspirational.
Also, yeah. Also, you want to plug in all the businesses that you have, where kind of if people who are listening want to come in and do QA and BOA and.
Sure. I would say first thing, I strongly believe that if you're passionate about something, you got to go do that first. So if you are passionate about being a teacher, you're passionate about being a banker, you're passionate about being a doctor or a nurse or whatever the case is, follow your passion, because trust me, money is not worth anything that's beyond your passion. Because I would hate my job. I would hate going to work just for a paycheck. Sure, it sounds like a luxury saying it now, but maybe the first year you're desperate, you want to do it. Second year, you're like, you can't wake up to go for a paycheck. It doesn't work that way. So if you're passionate about something, follow that dream. Give it a shot. The second thing is, if for some reason you're not passionate, you're like, yeah, passion needs to pay me, and you need to figure out something that you want to do. And if tech space is something that you're looking into, and you want to work-life balance someplace, especially after pandemic, everybody wants a job that they have the probability of working remotely, and tech space is the one space that still gives you that. So if you want that, and you feel like you're a person who likes to communicate, a person who likes to work with others, a person that enjoys working for Fortune 500 companies, or you're up for that, look into becoming a business analyst or a product owner or a product manager. All of those fields, I feel like is in growth and will have growth going forward. So you can look it up any place. I know, it's funny enough, most Columbia, NYU, most of those places have these courses. The only thing is they'll charge you an arm and a leg. Yeah, I think like the same course for 6 months, they will charge you probably $14,000-$15,000. And there's a secret to why people get jobs in this field. It's not necessarily the skills alone. It's the relationship plus how the resume is articulated, right? That's, I would say, is the biggest secret. It's not the knowledge alone. Because you and I can have the same level of knowledge. Let's say I work at an industry for 10 years, but you just took the course and you have the same knowledge. Now, brother here is looking to hire. He's going to immediately go after the person that has knowledge and the skills and the experience, whereas you have the knowledge only. So he might be able to get you that job, but he doesn't have that trust. If you're able to do it, there's no proven track record. So the institution that you take the course with, you have to make sure that they're able to successfully place you in a way that also demonstrates your experience, that also demonstrates your knowledge. I think that's what gives you that 6-figure salary, or else, what different are you than a startup college graduate?
That's the knowledge,
yeah.
But no experience.
If they want to go down the BA, QA route, can they come to you, Triage Solutions? I mean, is that?
Yep. So you can, so for the BA, it's called Mofaza Tech Solutions. Growing up, I used to like Lion King.
Oh, the movie just came out.
Yeah, I'm going to go see it.
So that's the funny story behind the name. So I wanted something that's easy, something catchy.
So you have your little Simbas, okay.
Yeah, a little Simbas. And then what happened is my wife's name is Famida Monita Faraji, and my name is Mohammed Zakir Faraji. So we took the first 2 letters of our full name, and it just came into Mofaza. And my daughter is Zion. My son is Zion. My daughter is Zaina. So they also have the Za in it. So it kind of turned into Mofaza. There you go. So you can go into, you can look us up on Mofaza Tech Solutions, or Triage Tech Solutions, or just, Zakir Faraji. You can Instagram and just send me a DM and say, hey, can I get more information? I'm more than happy to give you information. And then you can decide, if this is something for you or not.
No. And we'll put it up on our screen also. But But yeah, I'm good. I don't have any questions.
That's it. No, thank you for your time.
Oh man, yeah, this was this is amazing. Thank you, Zakir. We really appreciate it. And for those of you watching, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it as much as we did, because he threw a lot of gems, gave us a lot of golden nuggets. And so thank you for watching. Stay tuned.
That's it. You know, we need more Bangladeshis. We need more successful people, and we need to slowly take over.
Yeah, no, we do. Thank you.
All right, brother.